there, my name is Jacque and welcome to my show Movies to Games, where I do the pleasure of reviewing both the movie and the game that is based on that movie. Don't you just love classic movies? Well, I most certainly do. From the Age of Silence to the uproaring and bouncing majestic musicals to the entirely monochrome dramatic pieces, I bring this all up because of the beloved classic King Kong from 1933. When I was a young one, I'd watch almost anything that was put onto the screen. I was quite accustomed to both colour and black and white features, so when I saw King Kong as a very young child, it enthralled me to the point where I actually showed all my friends, and they had their own different approach to it. You see, long story short, they couldn't stand black and white. But then years later, an unknown director named Peter Jackson, who made such films as Bad Taste and Heavenly Creatures, decided to have his own approach on King Kong. And I kid you not, everyone, I mean everyone, wanted to see this movie. So in 2005, it hit the cinemas and it gained $500 million worldwide. That's a lot of money. And it gained 4 Oscars for sound mixing, sound design, production design, and visual effects. Bah humbug! The question is, does Peter Jackson's King Kong live up to the classic? Or is it a pointless remake? Let's find out. Jesus, that was long. If you're not too familiar with the story, give me a fragment of time to tell you briefly without spoiling anything. In the midst of the Great Depression, New York City, actress Ann Darrow, played by Naomi Watts, is struggling with her acting career and can't even pay for a bloody apple. On the other side, filmmaker Carl Denham, played by Jack Black, ventures on making an adventure film in an exotic location, but the grubby producers won't let him do so, so he bolts forward and goes with his own plan. He sees Anne as he searches for a dame for his main feature, and after some persuasion and her finding out that her favourite playwright Jack Driscoll, whom is played by Adrian Brody, is joining aboard on this expedition, she goes along with it, and she's hired. After nearly a whole entire goddamn hour on the ship, with romance, drama, comedy, character development, we finally get to Skull Island, which I must say, there was a scene where they were trying to tension build the name of Skull Island. Glorious! But yeah, they make it to Skull Island and oh no, a tribe attacks and Anne gets taken and she gets put up on this post thing and she's this old creepy lady going, Tore Kong, Tore Kong. And it's creepy, it's supposed to be creepy. And, long story short, 25-foot frickin' gorilla takes her away and the rest of the crew have to go into the jungle to get her back. The story in general from the classic and the remake, if we exclude the crappy 70s version, it's a very simple story and has very integral parts. So we start off with the act on the city and the ship, then we go to the main meat, which is the island, and then back to the city for the epic finale. The 1930s original kept it flowing. There was no point of time where I was just like, yeah, I really want to fast forward that scene. It clicked, and every scene was like a flowing film of river. Then we get to the remake. Now, I admire the director and the rest of the crew for their visionary aspect and tribute to the classic, but it can feel very rocky at times. The ship section alone, I calculated the amount of minutes that could have been cut out and the movie would not have been harmed in any way. And it was about 15 minutes. Yeah. Oh, and let's not forget the ice skating scene where Anne and Kong are in Central Park and they're just on the ice and they're skating, and it's supposed to be a harmoniously beautiful chemistry scene and all whatnot. But the scene before, Anne and Kong were together, meeting up for the first time in a long while in the city. It was a nice scene. And that's all it could have been. Like, you could have just left that. But no, we have to have a nice kicking scene, but whatever. Still then, I fast forward through all that stuff, and there's still some great enjoyment and fun out of the rest of the experience. Seriously, it's 3 hours long. I just cut out, like, say, 30 minutes. That's 150 minutes of goodness. Peter Jackson, the cinematographers and visionaries, did an absolutely splendid job of making this world come to life. New York City, oh my, the liveliness, the color, the bleakness of its era. It is gorgeous to look at. And like billboards, the cars, the lights, everything. Oh, jeez, it gets me all giddy inside. It's like I've gone back in time. And then we get to the jungle and it looks very nice with all the sets and the green screen, and I don't care about the green screen, but who cares, alright? King Kong is shot beautifully, having a large scope and scale on the locations, keeping a good focus on the characters and letting the audience know what the hell is going on. Then there's some two little major scenes, well not major but minor, like there's two irritating scenes that got to me. The reveal of Skull Island on the typewriter thing, and the tribe scene. Now, what they did was they slow-mo'd it, put it in shutter speed, and dropped down the frame rate in post-production. You know what that means? It looks god-awful. Now, the CGI is 3/4 a hit and the other quarter a miss. Now, Kong, the V-Rex, the locations, they're all fine. They look astonishing, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Even for an 11-year-old movie, it's 11 years old. Getting old. Anyway, they look astonishing. Sure, they're CGI, you know they're CGI, but the creations are done very well. Now, the 1/4 would have to be the little bloody insects, the part in the pit, and the goddamn brontosauruses. Oh my god, those brontosauruses have aged very unwell. Okay, I just want to get these characters out of the way so I can focus on my favorites, alright? So, Jacque is okay. I would have minded a little bit more oomph from the pianist, but he's just typically I must save an character. Carl Denham is Jack Black. Jack Black is Jack Black. And Jack Black does good. Jack Black I like. And that is about it. Colin Hanks' character, I tend to forget that he's actually in the movie, but he did a pretty good performance, now that I remember. So yeah, Hayes was pretty good. Yep, Jimmy, and the rest of the crew I tend to forget because I just didn't get to know them well. On to Anne Kong. Now, in the original classic, Anne Darrow was a damsel in distress. She'd scream a lot and do blah 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 because, you know, 1930s and whatnot. But in the remake, Naomi Watts makes Anne Darrow a much more interesting character, a much more fun character, I'll say that. In the beginning, when she first meets Kong, she's like screaming and she's goddamn losing her mind, but I would do the same thing if I saw a 25-foot goddamn gorilla right in front of me. Holy god. But over time, Anne bonds with Kong, and it's very fun to watch, actually. Like, she's doing her circus moves and all that stuff that she learned from acting, you know? And Kong is amused, but when she says no, she means no, and goddamn Kong loses his mind and she knows that she's got him right in the bag. It's a good scene, I liked it. And by the end, Anne really gives a damn about Kong. Like, no one else does. She's the only one that can see it. I think Jacque might, but... And let's get to Kong. Now, in the original, Kong was, you know, he acted like a gorilla. And not to say that in the remake he acts like a gorilla. What I'm saying is, his facial animation in the 30s one was, you know, like a gorilla. Like he'd smile and, very creepy smiling, but he'd smile and all that sort of stuff. Yes, Andy Serkis did the facial capture for King Kong. And you know what? I liked it. I know some people were just like, it's a very human-like, you know, facial expressions and all that sort of stuff. But, yes, but no at the same time. I mean, gorilla expressions, and it's like a mix, and it works tremendously well. James Newton Howard, my main man. I like a lot of your music from most of your movies, and here your compositions embrace the action, adventure, drama, comedy, suspense. You manage to encapsulate all of that, and it's a really tremendous effort. I applaud you for that. Good work. Peter Jackson's King Kong is pretty good, if a bit long. It won't beat the classic, but it's still a good recommendation that I suggest that you watch if you have the time. Trust me, it's 3 hours. Gotta look at your watch. Is it 12 a.m.? Better not be. So, in the end, I'll give it 3.5 fingers. That really does hurt. Anyway, game time. Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. Yes, that's a mouthful. This was released in 2005 and was developed by Ubisoft with the assistance of Peter Jackson. And alright, here we go. I'm gonna need this. Alright. It was released on the following consoles: PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable, Nintendo GameCube, the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, Microsoft Windows, original Xbox, and Xbox 360. I'm surprised there wasn't any Dreamcast, PS1, and Nintendo 64 ports. As you can see, I only withhold the 360 version. So let's boot it up and see if Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, lives up to the height and peak of the movie. Hopefully so.
At first I thought the game was going to do that thing where it would show scenes from the movie after a few levels each and then it get into the actual level. I got a feeling about it as the beginning showed footage of the movie. But no! After that video, it's all up to the game. No cutscenes, just gameplay that rolls the story along. I must say, they did a good job of explaining the first hour of the movie in 2 minutes without any sort of confusion. Let's get into the game following the main story. After the small cutscene, you play as Jacque in a boat heading to Skull Island, and you know what? Long story short, the game follows the story of the movie, but with an elongation of the missions. The only differences I came across were when they fall down the pit, they don't fight any of the disgusting maggots and bugs down there. And in the movie, Hayes died from that fall, but here, the V-Rex just kills him. Wah wah wah. There are the key moments though, such as Kong fighting the V-Rex team and the scene where Anne is taken by Kong. What makes it great though is that we experience it in the first person perspective of Jacque, and other times as Kong. It keeps the narrative rolling as you play the game. The only negative to it is that they try spreading the game hours, which roughly is 6 hours tops to beat. So padding it out was the wise thing to do. But if you are quite the sport playing games over a second time and obtaining high scores, you can unlock not only a bunch of cool concept art, model designs and making of footage, but the final unlock gives an alternate ending of the game where you play as Jacque in a seaplane shooting spotlights from the Empire State Building to save Kong from the other planes. Succeeding at this grants you a small scene of Jacque and Anne flying around Skull Island with Kong back home chilling on top of his fortress, which is a nice little change for once. I remember back when the Xbox 360 launched and seeing a booth in one of the good old stores of yore. There were multiple demos and King Kong was one of them. Back then, seeing the V-Rex from a first-person perspective and the rain effects in HD was absolutely amazing. It felt like we were in the game. But as the evolution of gaming goes on, graphics over time do sort of become dated. Most games at least. And while I can say that it looks alright at this point of time now, it most certainly didn't age well with the facial animations, textures and terrain. Some of the backdrops are stunning to look at, but there aren't really that many. It's a muddy vision at times, however I can accept it. What pondered through my playthrough was the fact that the frame rate has trouble sometimes, and it especially crumbles when you're banging your peck drums as Kong. And another thing is the blurring. I don't find that visual aspect enticing, just annoying. It's highly distracting. And good God and gracious gravy, whoever had the bright idea to not include a brightness setting for King Kong on the 360 at least had to be insane. This game is really dark in places, like in the caves, you can't see where you're going and you won't know what hit you. And what makes it worse is when Jacque or Kong is attacked and the area is merely darkened. You're not gonna see a bloody thing. So turn up that TV's brightness, otherwise it will be a blind wandering. What is pretty sweet is that all the film cast members reprise their roles for the game, and they do alright.
Anne, come with me. I want to shoot some test shots.
You want to start filming now?
Sure, why not? That's why we're here. We'll start with... And action. Scream, Anne! Scream for your life!
What was that?
They probably got annoyed yelling out Jacque multiple times and couldn't wait for that paycheck delivered. Nevertheless, they serve a decent job towards the characters they play as. The music has two major pieces that I mainly remember. The menu music and the I'm so bloody close to dying right now theme. And that's about it. Pretty chilling though. If there is one thing I really dig, and that's the lack of a HUD and reticule. Sure, you can put that all on, but I think that it makes the game much more interesting. There's a button where Jacque says how much ammo he's got left, and it makes things a bit tenser. In the game, the player assumes the role of both Jack Driscoll and the giant gorilla, Kong, as they struggle to survive the threats of Skull Island. We'll begin with Jack. He plays in the typical first-person perspective view, shoots guns like the shotgun, pistol, and Tommy gun, can throw spears, and bones in the shape of spears. Alrighty then. Oh, and of course can bash things open with the flick of the wrist, and can use man's greatest achievement of weaponry, fire! Fire is used a lot throughout, whether burning bushes, putting a bit more damage on enemies, or wanting to watch the world burn. It works well. I said before that there's no HUD, and I really like it. No life bar, nothing, and you gotta press a button to know how many rounds you have left. I like that feature, so much so that I've mentioned it twice now in my script.
It's okay, I got enough magazines.
Jack controls okay. Nothing special. I can move him. That's a good thing. He doesn't turn woefully, and shooting things is on point for your standard FPS, and you can see where the focus went. Throughout Jack's missions, my gripe has to be the AI partners. My, oh my, do they make my game feel like an escort sometimes. It doesn't happen often. When it does, just roll the footage. Good times. Hello, Kong, the eighth wonder of the world, the main title of the game, the gorilla that we play for only a few levels. And he's not the best to play as. So as we play as Kong, we gotta defend Anne, as well as travel around Skull Island, taking out the creatures that were pretty massive for Jack's taste, but are minuscule for Kong's eye. As you can visualize, Kong is in a third-person view, which is for the greater good, and although he does control like how I imagine moving a large gorilla, it's not exactly a cakewalk. There's some major clunkiness when swinging on trees and vines, and the fighting could have used a bit more tightness. That's not what I absolutely dislike, if you must know. I find these sections absolutely boring, not just because they are easy, but there isn't any sort of satisfaction except for pumping the chest to unleash hell and widening the sweet jaws of a V-Rex. Oh, and bashing terrain, and bashing small enemies, and beating the crap out of bosses. As a matter of fact, never mind, there is some good satisfaction. Other than that, it's pretty simple and boring.
Peter Jackson's King Kong and its game are both good at what they accomplish. Sure, the movie does better things than what the game does, but they're both pretty good. I was very surprised. So, my rating for both the movie and the game would be an equally good. Ding ding ding. And that there concludes another episode of Movies to Games. Thank you very much so for watching, and now that we've taken down a 25-foot gorilla, let's go back into the jungle and look for a man-ape. Yes, George of the Jungle. And I'm kidding, Jesus Christ. Disney's Tarzan from 1999. Till next time, ta-ra!